today's lesson is going to be an intro to soils lesson. So today's vocabulary words that we need to look out for are soil, leaching, humus or humus, topography, and parent material. And some learning objectives to look out for in this lesson. You'll be able to analyze soil horizons from an image. Students will be able to explain the factors affecting soil development. You'll also be able to differentiate what is a soil. You'll be able to explain the fractions that compose the soil, and you'll be expected to test on these objectives to maintain a minimum score of a 75. So we get into this lesson, and the first topic that we need to discuss is what is a soil. So a soil is a dynamic natural body composed of mineral and organic solids, gases, liquids, and living organisms, which can serve as a medium for plant growth. This means that soil can maintain life. So we have a seed, and it starts in the ground. It has contact, it has water, it has all that it needs to emerge from the seed coat. And so then the soil will give the plant everything that it needs to maintain its life, such as nutrients, water, and air for the roots to respire. Okay, so next topic that we need to discuss is what is soil composition. So there's 5 main components of the soil, and they are mineral matter, air, water, organic matter, and living organisms. We are going to dive deeper into each of these components to see how they interact and form soil. So the first thing is the mineral fraction, and it's 45% of our soil. Our soil particles range from 2 millimeters to 0.002 millimeters in diameter. And so our soil particles are classified by size. So we have rocks and other large things that are greater than 2.0 millimeters, and they are not considered to be a soil particle. But we do have sand coming in at 2 to 0.05 millimeters, silt 0.05 to 0.002 millimeters, and clay, which is less than 0.0002 millimeters. And so our mineral fractions are formed by rock fragments that are broken down by the weathering processes. The next part of the soil is we have the air fraction, and it's 20 to 30% of the soil, and it's going to fill the space between soil particles, and it's composed of oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide. So air is essential for soil organisms and plant roots because they do respire. And soil air has a higher moisture content and a higher carbon dioxide content because our roots are respiring constantly underneath the surface. The next fraction that we have is the water fraction, and water is held between soil pores where the attraction between water and soil surfaces greatly restrict the ability to water to freely flow. So that means that soil water is going to stay in the soil because it doesn't have the ability to flow through the soil. It has to go through these particles until it can be leached out. And soil water contains dissolved organic and inorganic substances, and we call this the soil solution. It's where our nutrients are held in the soil without being held to a soil colloid. So the next we have is the living organisms fraction, and that includes soil microbes, worms, insects, and they help break down the plant and animal remains to form the organic matter. Organic matter is 5% of the soil composition, and it influences soil properties such as fertility because it binds mineral particles into a granular soil structure. It increases the amount of water a soil can hold. It's a major source of plant nutrition, and a part of organic matter is the humus, and that's a collection of organic compounds that accumulate in the soil when plant and animal residues are partially broken down. So the next thing that we need to discuss is the factors affecting soil development and how those affect soil development. We have climate, topography, time, and parent material. So how does climate affect soil development? It determines the nature and intensity of weathering that occurs. Rainfall or a lack of rainfall determines how fast these particles are going to be broken down, and it's a formation of soluble salts in dry regions, which is not good for our plants because a high salt content can become very toxic. And it develops faster in warm and moist regions because higher the temperature and wetter the region, we're going to have a faster degradation of the soil particles. And it's going to be slower and colder in arid regions because our soil microbes need the warmth of the atmosphere in order to want to work to break down that weathering, break down those remains to form our organic matter. And in our arid regions, because there's no water. And so that is going to restrict our weathering process. So how does topography affect soil development? Well, first off, topography refers to the landscape. So steep slopes encourage rapid soil loss. And in semi-arid regions, the lower rainfall on steeper slopes result in less vegetative coverage. So that's going to be less contribution to our plant organic matter. And soil on steep slopes tend to have poorly developed soil profiles because of the rapid soil loss. And our deeper soils will form at the bottom of these slopes because when the particles are eroded on the top of the slope, they're going to be sent somewhere, and they're usually at the bottom of these slopes. So time can be referred to as a young or mature soil due to the time the weathering process takes. And our parent material, each soil inherits traits from its parent material, and parent material is changed through biological and chemical processes. So the next thing we need to discuss is soil profiles. The first profile is the O horizon, and this is going to be where your organic matter is, and it's going to be where the most biological activity takes place, but also it's going to be the richest in plant material. Our second layer is the A horizon, and it's right under the O horizon, and it's dominated by the mineral particles, but it doesn't have the accumulants of the organic matter throughout. So it's going to be what we call as topsoil. So it's going to be dark in color, and some of them have a high organic matter content, but not all of them do. The next layer is the B horizon, and it's the accumulation of the minerals from the A and O horizons. The next is the C horizon, and that's where we get our weathered parent material and our rock fragments. And the R horizon is the hard bedrock. There is no biological activity taking place, and it's a rock layer. So the next thing we need to discuss is leaching. So it's the removal of materials in solution from the soil from percolating water, such as the rainfall. So rain is gonna fall, and as it makes its way through the soil profiles, it's going to take the nutrients from the A horizon and take those down throughout the other horizons. So we have two terms to discuss when it comes to leaching. Eluviation is where the particles carried by percolating waters into deeper soil. And eluviation is the deposition of those particles. So eluviation is the movement of water, and eluviation is the deposition, or where the particles are placed. And that is the end of the lecture for the soils course.